All right, welcome back to Net to Net Podcast NBA edition. We back here on the pod. Welcome back, Casey Kirsch. It's been a minute since our last NBA podcast we've had you on. Let's dive right in. We really actually haven't talked about it, which I was kind of waiting on Casey for this, but we were going to talk about the NBA draft kind of that happened last month. We really didn't get to talk about it much because it's like you have the NBA draft, then you go straight into free agency, and really all your attention's on free agency for the most part. During the off season before we get back in. I know next episode we'll definitely break down with Caleb probably if he's on the in-season tournament group stage next week. But today it's all about the draft. We were going to reflect on what happened. So, Casey, we're going to start with you.
Yeah. Honestly, I actually am really interested in this year's draft. I know a lot of people were saying that this year as a weak draft, it's not a deep draft. There's not a consensus number one pick. A lot of different things negative about this draft. For me, I see this as a draft of a lot of good role players that can affect winning on a championship team. I don't see the Victor Wembanyama, the LeBron James of this class or anything like it. But I do see the potential in a lot of these players, and I was excited to see and am excited to see them getting into action here in Summer League this summer, and then going into this next season. How are they going to affect their teams? Generally, the rookies don't do anything crazy the first year. You see the anomalies. I don't see an anomaly in this draft, but I think that there's good potential for starter level, maybe all-star level players in this class. I mean, the first player we can talk about, Zachary Rizoschay, had a great year out in France, wasn't projected by a lot of people to be number one. A lot of people were saying Alex Sarr was the top prospect in this class due to his sheer physicality, strength, and length. But Zachary kind of projects as that 3-and-D player that can do a lot of everything. Doesn't have any flaws in his game, really. Maybe you could say strength. But even then, that's something you typically build on as you get into the NBA. Very versatile player that you see is a hot commodity right now. I mean, we just saw OG Anunoby get paid $215 million or something like that. And that's something where you really you have to value these players. You can't really get these players unless you overpay for them. So the Hawks just went out and they picked a safe pick here. And something of need that they really need. I mean, they already have Clint Capella. They already have Onyeka Okongwu. So they really didn't need another center here unless they were looking to trade, which they weren't. So I would say it's a pretty good pick. I think Alex Sarr has a higher ceiling, but I think Rizoschay has a good potential and probably has a higher floor than Alex Sarr does, and it is a much better fit. Sam, what do you think about this pick?
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the Alex Sarr fit in between Washington and Atlanta. I think the only way they would have taken Alex Sarr is if they would have shipped off Okongwu or Clint Capella. And then I think that would be in the right direction to bring in Alex Sarr. We actually saw both of these guys play in the Summer League. Alex Sarr's team got the win, but he did start off really slow. He didn't honestly shoot the ball that great. He was 4 of 12, 7 rebounds and 4 assists and 4 blocks, which he really showed his quality on the defensive side. Can he take that next step and be a lethal inside scorer? And then we saw Rizoschay. Yes, they did lose, but he had the better of the game. He had 18 points, 7 of 16 from shooting, 3 of 9 from 3 with 5 rebounds and 2 assists and a block. Rizoschay just fits what they needed. Like you said, a 3-and-D guy that can play defense, have a big wingspan, especially with them trading DeJounte Murray. And then with Alex Sarr again, it's the question of, do you view him as a power forward or do you view him as a center? Right now, it looks like they view him as a power forward. that's because you don't bring in Valanciunas as a center for that much money of what they brought him in for to play backup minutes to Alex Sarr at the center. So what's going to look like is Kuzma's no longer going to be the 4. Kuzma's up in the air at this point right now. I don't know if they're going to trade him or they're going to keep him. But other than that, I think Alex Sarr could maybe potentially be special. But right now, I would take Rizoschay at 1. I think that was a good move by Atlanta. We saw them go out and get them. But someone that I was actually really high on is the 3rd overall pick, Reed Shepherd. He had an amazing game against the Lakers, against Bronny and Connect. He shot very well. He's a typical 3-point shooter. I think he'll be very good in the long run. I liked him a lot. Outside of that, like you mentioned, there wasn't a ton of like that first quality man that everybody wanted. I think Sarr was that at the beginning of the whole drafts process, and then it went to, is it Rizoschay? Is it Stephon Castle? Is it Donovan Clingan? Which Donovan Clingan falling to 7 at Portland makes kind of, it was a very weird, I don't know why he fell so far, because we look, yes, outside of Houston and Detroit and Spurs with 3, 4, and 5, they really don't need a big man. But I don't know how the Hornets passed up on not taking Donovan Clingan, who was a force to be reckoned with at UConn, over, and then take another Frenchman in Tijan Salzin, which is very shocking to me. I don't know if there was anything shocking to you. I think probably most shocking would be for both of us is probably Zach Edey going at 9 to Memphis.
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest shock for me, I expected Edey to go in the lottery at some point. 9, I'd say that was a little higher than I figured he would go. I figured he'd go either 11 to the Bulls, 13 to the Kings. I mean, it was anywhere in that like 10 to 14 range I thought he would end up going. Now, he is a position of need for the Grizzlies, so it does make sense. I would say the biggest shock for me was the Rob Dillingham trade to Minnesota. And honestly, like, I was really surprised because I thought he would have been a great fit with Wemby. He's a volume scorer, volume shooter from 3, and he really can do a lot on the offensive side. You have Wemby as the defensive anchor for that team. Dillingham's would fit really well with them. Minnesota cashes in. They're trying to optimize this championship window with Edwards as much as they can, and they give up 2 first-round picks for him. Both being in 2030 and 2031. So I really don't think they gave up too much. Edwards will still be in his prime during that time, so they're kind of just going in. They believe in Dillingham. Obviously, he showed out at Kentucky last season. Looked like probably the second best point guard in this draft. Probably third or second or third. But either way, like, I would say they really hit on this. Mike Conley's getting older, so he's going to play backup to him next year. I mean, you don't really want Jordan McLaughlin playing a ton of minutes in those type of moments. So Rob Dillingham's going to get to learn from a seasoned veteran like Mike Conley, grow next to Anthony Edwards, and eventually take over the mantle as that starting point guard. So I would say that's the biggest surprise for me. I think it was a really good move by Minnesota, but not so much by San Antonio's front.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think they should have kept Rob Dillingham. The fact that they didn't go out and draft a point guard in the first round or in the second, or trade up to get another one, which was kind of shocking, because now, and not knowing this before the draft, and now knowing that they go out and get Chris Paul on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Are you still committed to Trey Jones as your point guard? I know they really liked Nikola Topic before partially tearing his ACL, which was unfortunate because he would have been a top 5 pick. are you relying now on Stephon Castle to be that point guard to take over after Chris Paul? Because Castle is a really good player. He's a really good 3-and-D player. Well, he's kind of a 3-and-D player. He's very good at the defense, but he struggled to shoot the three. He only shot 27%. Now, outside of Chris Paul shooting, which has gone down, you're sitting there with Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan, who played some of the point guard, and now you have Stephon Castle. You have three technically skilled point guards that can't shoot the three.
Chris Paul can hit one down. He can hit an open three.
That's what I said, outside of Chris Paul.
Gotcha,
That's what I said outside. Now, are you just going to rely on the pick and roll the entire time with Victor Wembanyama? Or are you going to surround them with shooters? Like, yes, you have Devin Vassell, Kendall Johnson. Who else am I missing? Malachi Branham.
Yep.
They can hit threes. I'm just a little confused on. You had a chance to have Rob Dillingham and Stephon Castle. Castle can move to the 2, or Rob can move to the 2, whatever fits your preference. Vassell can play the 3, and then is it Kendall or is it Sohan at the 4, and then obviously Wembanyama. I just wasn't a huge fan of trading the 8th pick because, yes, you trade the 8th pick, and what'd you say? They got, 2 seconds or something like that?
2 first.
2 first, which you could have done, or you could have gone a position that you needed, like a stretch 4 big man, which there was, I would say. Just think about this. Klingon, if he was still out there, or Zach Edey next to Wembanyama.
So you're saying you would have liked to see them draft a center and play Wemby at the 4?
Or draft a power forward and play Wemby at the 5. Someone that have a big man, because they really don't have height outside of, I think, Sohan's the tallest, and he's only like
they have some tall players. Most of their team is tall, at least 6'6", 6'7". You know, they have a lot of wing height players. I mean, they bring in another one of those in Stephon Castle. He's 6'6". So it's
they're not as physical, though. They're not like hugely.
No, but they don't really have to be. They have Wemby down low who can block any shot at any time.
Yeah.
You know, I would say this is actually bringing Chris Paul in was a good move, but I would have liked to see them move on from Trey Jones, keep Dillingham, and then have Dillingham be mentored by Chris Paul this year, and then take it over for next year as the starting point guard. Play Stephon Castle at the 2, Vassell at the 3, Keldon off the bench, or maybe he's probably not big enough to be a full-time 4, but probably Sohan at the 4.
Kendall's 6'5". He's not as big.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's not big enough to be a full-time 4, I think. But either way, I think the Spurs didn't have a great draft in general, just because they made that move. But they signed Chris Paul, which is a winning move. And obviously, we know Victor Wembanyama wants to compete already, and he's obviously good enough to compete already. So, are they going to push for the plan? Or I would say probably Wemby's going to get better. Their team didn't really change that much outside of that. So, I would say that Spurs probably get a B- for this draft. So,
I would say B-, B. Looking in the first round, because there's always a bunch of steals in the second round, like Kyle Filipowski going to Utah. You got the likes of obviously Bronny James going to the Lakers in the second, Kevin McCullough falling to the Suns, and Cam Spencer falling to the Pistons from UConn. So there's always a lot of these great steals. Who was your main steal in the first round? I would love to hear it. Mine, for me, has to be, I like the Kalehware signing, or the drafting of Kalehware. Yeah. Well, and he was very good. I always feel like Miami is missing that center. They really haven't had it since Chris Bosh left. And we're talking about Kalehware had a great first game in the summer league. I believe he scored. It was in a first game he averaged 28 points in 17 and 29 minutes. Potentially, maybe moving Bam to the 4. And playing. Yes, you lose the floor spacing. Yes, I understand you lose that floor spacing, but Kalehware is someone that I think could start, maybe move Bam to the 4, or give you that backup 5 minutes, which I think that's what they're missing, that rim protector. And what I've seen, what I saw at Indiana, what I saw the previous year at Oregon when he was there, he had the makings of being something special. I think he was a great steal of the draft for Miami purposes. I give that a B plus, A minus. I think that really fits what they're missing there, and we really haven't seen something like that in a while.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be the 29th pick, Isaiah Collier out of USC. And I think although he didn't have a great season at USC, he was the number one ranked prospect coming out of high school for that class. Yep. I still think that he can be a top player from this class, and he has the potential to be an all-star eventually in the league. Going at 28 is kind of a big downfall for him in this sense. But he's going to be in Utah where there's not much pressure. He's going to be able to grow his game. They don't have many true point guards on the roster. If you count Keontae George, they played him at point guard last year, but he's more of a 2 anyways. So I think he'll have the runway in order to grow in that situation. Now, I'd say probably his biggest strength is shot creation, and that is something that's highly valued around the league. A lot of players just don't have the ability at the NBA level to do that. But considering how that's his main skill, I think he should be able to develop on that. And eventually, he should be able to work on his 3-point shot as well, which he struggled with this past season, along with the turnovers. But, I mean, he was the number one he was supposed to be the number one overall pick. So you've seen this before in like Michael Porter Jr., where he develops into a near all-star type player. I could see that for Collier, but he's picked at 29 instead of 14. So I'm really high on this pick, and obviously Collier in general.
Yeah, Isaiah Collier, I followed him throughout high school. His 2 main schools that he was looking at was USC and Cincinnati, and I was following him for a while. And I really thought he was going to go to Cincinnati until USC threw the bag at him for the NIL deal. He was really close to leaning to UC. I remember just talking to some of my friends on the team and just some people around close to the team, and he's very good. He, like you said, he is a shot creator. He goes out and gets his shots. Like you mentioned, yes, his 3-point, he only shot 33%. And I would say another weakness is his free throw shooting. 67% as a guard is kind of alarming, because when you think of your guards, they're very good at free throws. They're very good at facilitating. Only 4.3 assists per game. It's a good pick. I will say that. I don't think he'll play point guard. I think he's more of a 2 guard, just the way his stats are and the way he plays. I feel like he's a really good off ball. So I think there's a chance that they keep Keontae George at the 1 and play him as an off ball.
Could do. He did struggle with turnovers a lot, so if that continues to happen, they're going to move him off ball.
And then if you look at it, you saw when Bronny was playing, and that was just limited minutes. They kind of played Collier off ball. Bronny was more the facilitator, and it kind of worked better. Same with Boogie. They also had Boogie Ellis, who put up phenomenal numbers. I'm shocked he didn't even go in the second round. He had a phenomenal season at USC. But yeah, I do like the pick. Yeah, he's a 5-star. He was the number 1 recruit on everybody's board. It was a good steal. I would say it's a great steal there for them.
All right, and I think we'll go into our last point here about the draft. Obviously, it's got to be about Bronny James here. Going at pick 55 to the Lakers out of USC. Sam, I guess, what are your impressions on the pick? I know we had talked about it before. I thought he was going to get drafted. You didn't think he was going to get drafted. And the fact that I only said that because it was the Lakers at 55 and LeBron's on the team. But yeah, he ends up getting picked 55. He hasn't looked great in summer league so far. I think he shot very poorly so far in his first 3 games. So, Sam, I guess what are your impressions on the pick? Do you think it'll end up working out for the Lakers? And how do you see Bronny James fitting into a Lakers roster where we're trying to compete now, but really don't have time to develop either?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first thing. Yeah, I didn't think Bronny was going to get drafted. And I was saying this even before he worked out at the combine, just based off limited time at USC. Having that cardiac arrest was huge impact on how he did. I was a little hesitant of what I saw from him at USC, just because the numbers weren't there. But you have to also think he missed what? It was like 4 or 5 months of not playing basketball before getting cleared. So I think a lot of us taking that into consideration have been a little bit hard on him. But if we're talking about basketball specifically, I think that take emotion out of it and take that situation out of it, he struggled. Did I think he should have returned for another year? Yes. I think to develop his game more? Yes. Of course I think he should have. But he made that decision to go out now. He was very good in the individual and in the 5-on-5 at the combine. When I watched, he looked very well. I believe he was the highest scoring, 13 points or something like that. He looked very well. And then when he was, when the time came, he didn't opt out. He stayed in the draft. When the Lakers had the pick, I kind of sensed that Rich Paul and them were kind of forcing teams not to pick him because they said he wasn't going to play. He was going to play in Australia. Even Bob Myers said it on the live feed. He said pretty much they were pretty much telling teams not to draft him because he was going to go play in Europe. He's going to go play in Australia because he wanted to be a Laker. I think everybody knew that once it got closer to the draft, Laker. In the summer league, he struggled. But to be honest, he looks rusty. And I think that's because he was gone from basketball for a long time. Is he going to be on the team? No. I think he'll be in the G League for most of the season. I think that's where he needs to start. I think they're not going to rush it. Potentially, and I was talking to Brett off camera about this earlier today. I see Bronny being a all-star defensive player, like a Tony Allen, a Marcus Smart, but can come in and give you 10 points a game if needed, or 12. He's not going to give you like 15 points to 20-point range. He's not going to give you insane stats. That's not his game. That's not him. We'll probably expect that from Bryce when he comes through, but not Bronny. Bronny is a different player. He's going to be that Caruso kind of defender and facilitator. He's not going to have the flashy stats and flashy numbers, which is good, yes, and all, but it's not everything. Stats aren't everything, and it's a team sport, and he will contribute in the future. I think just not right now. I think JJ Redick knows that. I think Rob Pelinka knew that too when they drafted him. I just think he's got potential, and I think I was a little bit hard on him, just kind of analyzing the whole. He didn't really do much at USC. Yes, the cardiac arrest was a huge thing, but he didn't look great. He didn't look comfortable. I think he's starting to kind of realize that he's struggling a little bit, and he's got to just get through it. Rookies go through this. So, all in all, I think he could be good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same. Like, I think right now, I think he's basically going to be a red shirt, I think, for the NBA, which is kind of an anomaly. I mean, you see it, right? But you don't see it in this sense where you shouldn't even be in the league to begin with. And I completely agree with you. If this were any other player, they would be back in college for a second year.
Or undrafted.
Right, or undrafted. But he would have gone back. He had the spot available. Obviously, the NIL deals were incredible for him. He could have just went and made more money staying in college. But now he's in the league. He's probably going to play in the G League for a good amount of the season. He's going to play some minutes for the Lakers, though. LeBron said it's his dream to play with Bronny. He will play at least at some point. JJ Redick will end up playing him. when will it be? Probably towards the end of the season, I think. Which you never know. It used to be in the league, at least, where the last few games of the season were kind of like, let's rest our players for the playoffs type. But now with the play-in, with all the Western Conference getting better, every single game in this next season is going to count, especially for Western Conference teams. And the Lakers are no exception, considering that they really need to improve upon last season. They need to get better. And if they want to make a significant run this season, they need to have a higher seed, hopefully get home court advantage, which means they can't throw games and just throw Bronny into the fire right away. So I would expect it to be towards the end of the season if he plays, which he will at some point, whether it's for a game or just a few minutes or whatever. But I agree with you. He'll be in the G League for a majority of the season, just trying to get better. And then next season, he should have more of an actual role on the Lakers.
Yeah, if he takes that next step, we see in the summer league through the 4 games or whatever he played in, three summer league games. He didn't play one of them, but he averaged 5 points and shot 23%. His highest scoring was 8 points. And he's already said that he will accept any assignment that he's given. I think the G League would fit him for the first year. Like you said, he might play they might call him up for the in-season tournament. They might call him up at the end of the season. I think he's going to need to take that time. Honestly, in all, getting him, I think he's going to be a long-term project, but also going out and getting Dalton Connect, a shooter that the Lakers need. Now, the Lakers are having a slow offseason, and I mentioned this on the last one. The Lakers really haven't done anything outside of paying LeBron the 2-year max that he took. Do you think JJ Redick is right for this job?
I don't think so, unfortunately. I think this was a LeBron fan. We got a podcast together. I mean, LeBron said he wasn't involved in this coaching search, but Pelinka was obviously trying to get someone who's close to LeBron, who would be good with the locker room, because you saw the previous Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham, they both lost the locker rooms relatively quickly. I mean, Frank Vogel did win a championship. They had good years, but it was very fast that he lost the locker room, in the sense that they were good, and then everything went bad. Everything went sour in the locker room very quickly. But JJ Redick, I think, is going to be able to connect more with the players, which is what I think they want for the future. But honestly, I think this is more of a post-LeBron thing. Post-LeBron, they want him to be the next Pat Riley, is what they said. And that's more of a long-term thing to say, considering he's just starting out coaching. So although he's able to be here and be friends with LeBron and everything, he's more of a, how do we connect and develop the next generation after LeBron? So I guess in that sense, it's a win for the Lakers. But is he ready to try and go for a championship now? Probably not.
Yeah, I think you're totally right on that. I think they want it long term and think about the future. The guy's only 40 years old. He's really never coached that many. I would have liked. I knew they weren't going to get Dan Hurley. I don't know why. Like, people were like, "Oh, they were going to talk to Dan Hurley." Like, yeah, there was significant
if
talks.
you heard Dan Hurley talk, he said if they would have given him more money, he would have gone there.
Yeah,
but the Lakers weren't
so.
weren't gonna give him a full make him the highest paid coach in the league.
Yeah, and he has that. I don't think you leave that success at UConn. I think he made the smart decision. I would have liked him to go out and get James Borrego. I like James Borrego. He's the assistant coach for the New Orleans Pelicans. I think he would have done great as the head coach. I like him. I think he would have commanded the locker room. Yeah, he doesn't have that playing type that JJ had, but I think he commands the locker room, and I think he would be right for that. Now it's about building that pieces around him. But we've seen it before. People that have barely had any coaching experience become good coaches. Steve Kerr, obvious example. Most notably, he was the GM of the Suns at one point, and then after that he hadn't had any coaching experience. Steve Nash was a coach. Jason
Wasn't that
Kidd.
good? Yeah, Jason Kidd's a good example. Yeah.
Jason Kidd had his ups. Steve Nash, if he had more time, I think he could have been good. I just think he was kind of just thrown in there. But yeah, there are coaches that have never really had that coaching experience. Would I have liked to see JJ Redick be an assistant first? Yes, I would. I think that would have helped. But all in all, I think Redick. I think he knows basketball. We know that.
He does.
We know he knows basketball. And I'm a little biased. He is a Duke boy. He's one of the best Duke players to ever play at Cameron. I like him a lot as a player. It'll be interesting to see how he does this season. Would I like to see him involved in Summer League? Yes, I would have loved to see that. Just because it's practice. It's practice of being a coach. And yes, you don't really see your head coaches being involved, but it's not just being involved as a coaching. See how you interact with players, your coaching staff, because that your assistant coaches aren't coaching. And you're interacting with your players and you're interacting with officials and other teams. I would love to see that more. I kind of just saw him sitting there with Pelinka the entire time, not really doing a whole lot.
I can relate to this actually as a Pelicans fan. We had first-time head coach Willie Green, who's our head coach right now. He got hired from the Suns as an assistant. It's his first time being a head coach. He goes and coaches our summer league team that next summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that class, in that summer league team, he discovers Herb Jones, who was the 35th pick that year. He realized the ultimate potential of Herb Jones, which a lot of people didn't end up seeing outside of him. He goes to David Griffin, who's the vice president of basketball operations for the Pelicans, says, "Hey, David, I want to start Herb Jones." David goes, "Oh, that's fine. You can start him on the summer league team." And then he goes, "No, for the varsity roster." And nobody knew about Herb Jones, but he ended up starting almost the entire season for the Pelicans. And what a decision that was, because even in his first year, people were saying he should have made an all-defensive team, and he just made all-defensive first team this year. So I relate to that. I think that would have been great for JJ Redick just to get some experience under his belt. James Borrego, on the other hand, everyone in New Orleans only has great things to say about him. He believes in a more free-flowing, quick-paced offense that is prioritizing shooting, which is great around LeBron James. So I think offense-wise, that would have worked out perfectly for him. In defense, he had some good defenses in Charlotte as well. And you obviously have Anthony Davis there to anchor that. So I think that would have been the right hire. Dan Hurley would have been a good hire. They end up with JJ Redick, more so because of the name, I think. But hopefully he can develop into a really good coach. But again, I think that he should have been coaching the summer league team just to get more in tune with the organization itself.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think Borrego gets a bad look just because of what happened in Charlotte, and you can't really blame him for that because the team wasn't great. They struggled, and that's not his fault. It's hard to win games if you don't have the team around you and to implement that system. All in all, this draft was very interesting. Like you mentioned in the beginning of the episode, there wasn't a true all in all that you're gonna trade up for. I think it was pretty much there was like 5 people, and it pretty much depended on fit and who was on that team going into the draft. Just to kind of hit at it at the end, both of our teams had draft picks in the first round. The Bulls going out and get a hometown boy in Montez Abuzuelas, who had a phenomenal, not phenomenal, but had a good start to the summer league for him. He played very well. And then you got Yevi Misi coming out of Baylor, who I was indifferent about. I know you like him. Coming out of Baylor, kind of fits fits it a little bit more. I would have liked them to go out and get like Kyle Filipowski or a Jonathan Mbongo, who actually I've seen play when he played for San Francisco. He was very good when they played LMU, or a Demabona out of UCLA. What we've seen flashes of.
See, the thing is with Yves Misi though, like he is still a super raw player, a raw prospect. Like he he started playing basketball. I think they said when he was 16, and he's 19 now. So he's really only been playing like organized basketball for 3-4 years. So it's not like he's going to be 100% ready to start right now. But center was a position of need for us. We had Valanciunas over the past few seasons. He goes at free agency and goes to the Wizards on a 3-year, $30 million deal. We weren't going to pay him that. He really didn't fit our system too well. He's obviously a great center still. He can rebound with the best of them, but he doesn't defend. He's not mobile. And I think like the way we like to play is fast, switchable lineups, which we would play Larry Nance, sometimes even starting the second half just because Valanciunas couldn't do that. And Larry Nance would end games too. But we shipped him off too for DeJounte Murray. So we really needed a center in this deal, or in this with this pick. Yves Missi is quick. He's versatile. He can switch on multiple different players. He can block shots, which is something we haven't had. We haven't had a true rim protector since Anthony Davis. So I'm excited for this pick. I think we really needed a center who could fit our system better. But I still think we need a true starting center to play for us. We just brought in Daniel Tice. He's not a starter. I think he'll be off the bench. So does that mean we're going to start Yves Missi to start from the season? I really hope not. But if we do, maybe he's the next Derrick Lively, who is this comparison coming out of college. But I don't think he's as NBA ready as Lively was. Maybe he'll develop into that, but I don't think he's there yet. So I like the pick, but it's not perfect. It's probably a B-plus pick.
Do you think there's a chance that they move Zion to the 5, which we haven't seen Zion play 5 since college days?
No, there's no chance they do that. We saw lineups where Zion was at the 5, but to be a full-time 5 is something that'll never happen just because of the amount of games played. And I know he did play 70 games last season, but he did get injured at the time of the season where you don't want to get injured right before the playoffs. So that really killed our chances of doing anything in the playoffs there. So I see him still playing the 4, and they're going to put a switchable 5 around him, I would think.
It makes sense, yeah. Unless they ended up deciding to trade Ingram and trying to swing for a center, which is also still a possibility because the season doesn't start until October. They have time to trade him beforehand, and he's been in multiple trade rumors and things with them. I know last I saw, I know the Pelicans, I think they inquired about Vucevic's availability. I don't know how true that is. Vuce kind of fits them because he can space the floor, and he's somewhat of a rim protector. It would only be. I feel like he can't defend, but I think it'd be short term until Yves Missi is ready to play, which isn't totally a bad idea. I know they've also been interested in Wendell Carter. I know that was a name mentioned, which kind of fits all your bills. Just a guy that can space the floor, a guy that can shoot the 3, a guy that can play rim defense, and he's physical.
We've inquired about Wendell Carter. The consensus says he's not available, and definitely not for cheap. We'd have to give up multiple first-round picks for him. So I don't think that's an option. He's also small and doesn't rebound as well as you'd like. He only averages 7 rebounds a game. For a center, that's not great at all. But the other thing with Yves Missi, though, that I'm excited about is the fact that he learns quickly. That's the main thing that people have said about him is he adapts quickly. Like, even last year at Baylor, they said he would redshirt for his first year. Then they said, well, he's picking up things really fast. We'll play him. We might even start him. But he's not going to be a vital piece. And then eventually he is the vital piece. He's going to be one of our main players, and then he ends up going to the NBA draft. So he's someone who I think can elevate very quickly. But do I think he's ready to start yet? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that kind of hits it on the head. I know. I honestly thought the Pelicans were going to take Deron Holmes, who went a pick after them, which would have been a great fit because he's a power forward. He can play the center position. He's 6'9". Yeah, he's 6'9", but he's pretty strong and he's a good rim protector. He would have been good, but then he ends up going and tears his ACL,
Yeah,
which
I
now
know.
he's done for the season.
That's upsetting. He just tore his ACL, but
because I could see him playing good minutes for Denver, and be maybe the future slot in for Aaron Gordon when they decide not to pay him after his contract's up, because they are paying a lot of money to Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., who they'll probably have to make a decision at one point.
That's why they let KCP go.
Mm-hmm. And now the young boys have to step up, and we see Christian Braun, Julian Strawther, and them and Peyton Watson step up, which I feel like we're going to see a lot of that from some of these teams. Like the Bulls, they're in purgatory. Who knows what they're doing at this point?
At least you admit they're in purgatory now.
I've admit they're in purgatory for a while. It's just
no, you haven't.
Just a little.
You would always say that they're gonna win at least a playoff series or two.
But I think they need to trade Vucevic, they need to trade Levine, and we just need to go through a proper rebuild. I think it's time. We've seen the Celtics do it. We've seen the Nuggets do it. We've seen the Knicks do it at one point. The 76ers is a perfect example. They went 5 or 6 years before they actually were good. The Thunder did it for once they lost Russell, and they decided to bring in Paul George and Carmelo, get rid of them, and then they go through this rebuild. They kind of fleeced the Clippers. So yeah, I think it's time for us to do it. Just hate to say it, but
I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, I know you have. Probably ever since Derrick Rose and Noah were shipped off to New York, and Dang signed with the.
Well, you saw Jimmy Butler at that point.
Yeah, but we had Jimmy Butler, Rajon Rondo, and Dwayne Wade, 2 guys that are over the age of 34 at the time, and just couldn't play basketball anymore.
Well, they could. They did for other teams. After,
but they played. They played.
They didn't. It didn't work.
Yeah, but when they went to other teams, they really didn't play. Like Dwayne only played maybe 10, 20 minutes a night, not like what we were playing him 34 minutes a night or whatever it was. And then we have Jim Boylan as our head coach for a couple of years, which I think the
Bulls have been sad ever since you guys made it to, was it conference finals or was it conference finals?
Derrick Rose's last year, I think, full year with them when he hit the bank shot in game 1 against the Heat. Yeah, against the Heat. And then we ended up losing that series 4-1. Yeah, What could have been if Derrick Rose never got injured?
Well, every NBA fan wants to know.
I think that's one of the main things. If you ask NBA fans, one of the things,
the biggest what if, it's Derrick Rose. It's
definitely Derrick Rose, and I think another one would be what if T-Mac stayed healthy or something like that,
or if LeBron and MJ played in the same era or something like that. Yeah.
Or what if Iverson got a ring or something? I think it's the weirdest things.
Shaq and Kobe never broke up.
Yeah. How many rings would they have won together? What happened if Manu and Tony and Tim never came to be? And I think it sucks to say, we're seeing it now from Kawhi. Kawhi's just getting injured all the time, but he ended up getting a ring, and I think Rose was on the short end of that stick, and he just couldn't he couldn't join a team that could get him a ring, and Kawhi did. But it's the NBA. It's fun.
It is. We'll be back with more NBA content here soon. The ramp up to the NBA season is starting. Summer League's going on right now. We'll probably end up doing a post-Summer League / if there's any trades type. And then we'll end up doing probably a preseason, not a preseason, but a preview of the NBA season as well. So that'll all be coming here soon. Stay tuned for more basketball, soccer, and any other sport content, because Sam will start getting into football season here soon, and we're all doing fantasy football this year, so I'll be into it as well. So
yeah, it should be fun. We're only a month away from college football starting. Almost a month away from NFL starting preseason. They're getting ready for training camp. They're in mini camps at the moment, so definitely can't wait to start that. And then, like you said, we're in a fantasy football. We'll definitely keep you guys updated on those, because we are playing. This is our first year in Dynasty, so this should be fun.
Yep.
Definitely keep a lookout for this episode coming out probably tomorrow, as well as our NBA, or as our not NBA, but our soccer one coming out tomorrow as well. So definitely stay tuned. Like us on Instagram and Twitter. Follow, and then go subscribe on Spotify if you like listening to podcasts, or if you like watching the podcast, go to YouTube. We love the support. We love the views going up. That's great for us developing our channel. But we'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.